Dive into summer with Vizcaya swimwear. Stylish, comfortable, unforgettable. Make a splash with Vizcaya swimwear. Discover your beauty with LadyCode Cosmetics. Bold colors, flawless finishes. Unleash your confidence with LadyCode. Hello and welcome back to Misrepresented. I'm your host, Lisa Opie, and today our guest is Rose Campbell, Mrs. Tennessee Queen of the World. What a title. That's so fun.
I love it.
I love it. I want to be Mrs. Queen of the World or Miss Queen of the World.
It's so luxurious.
I'm just going to go ahead and read all of your accomplishments because you're pretty impressive. Rose Campbell is a renowned celebrity and pageant publicist, recognized for her work in representing notable reality TV personalities such as Carole Baskin, we have to talk about that, and contestants in the Mrs. World pageant, which is like as good as it gets for Mrs. Pageants, right? That's like the top tier. In addition to her achievements in the entertainment industry, Rose is the visionary founder of Rise Up Womenpreneurs, a dynamic networking group and conference dedicated to empowering women entrepreneurs. I love that. That's like what Misrepresented is all about.
Yep.
Her commitment to supporting and uplifting women in business is evident in the impact of this innovative platform. Rose is also a best-selling author and the founder of Dying Inside that provides support and resources for individuals facing trauma and challenges because you are a survivor yourself. So Rose's journey from being a trafficked foster child to becoming a respected media mogul is a testament to her resilience, strength, and unwavering determination to create a positive change in the world. So through all of your advocacy work, you continue to inspire others, which is why you're here right now.
Yes.
So welcome, Rose.
Thank
that
you.
was quite an introduction.
It was. So long.
Yeah. Okay. So first things first, Carole Baskin, how did that come about?
So during COVID, like right before COVID, I was in the birth world. So I was like a midwife and I did doula and I caught babies but I mainly focused on like high risk and stillbirths.
Okay.
So when COVID hit, I wasn't allowed in the hospitals anymore. And I had a marketing background and all of that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back into marketing and PR. And during that time, I was also filming a show with HGTV. So I got on Clubhouse. And Clubhouse was huge during COVID.
I remember that.
So huge.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was for... This little group was for reality stars. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm a reality star. I've been on TV. So I joined, and Carole Baskin was on there.
Oh my god.
And she calls me up after listening to my story. She calls me and goes, hey, so I have a TV show that's coming out.
Oh, so this was before Tiger King. Oh
yeah,
my
and I was
gosh.
like, okay. She's like, I want to be your first PR client. And
What?
I was like, okay. She's like,
your
I'm
first PR client was Carole Baskin.
And I'm like, okay. And at that time, right before I had transitioned to Rise Up, it was an influencer summit. So she's like, let me do your influencer summit. There's so many things I want to talk about. I was like, okay. She didn't tell me what, Tiger King was going to be. And so it comes out and it is a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into peacocks and exotic animals myself. I was on a farm and so I was like, okay, Carole, you didn't tell me any of this. She's like, well, I didn't even know how they had edited it.
Okay, yeah.
So she ended up suing them and she won.
Wow.
It was a big thing and her husband was found.
Okay.
They
left that part out.
She didn't kill him. Yeah. And so she was my favorite client. And so she went on to the Influencer Summit and she spoke about character defamation. And I just love her. And she's so sweet. But she had a hard time with TikTok. So there was a song, Carole Baskin killed her husband.
Oh no.
Like chopped him something, fed him to the tiger. Some long song.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, like, look, yeah, it's kind of bad publicity, but it's also good publicity. We got you on Dancing with the Stars. That was big money. Now let's trademark this song. And let's make you make money.
You're a genius.
And she's like, well, I guess. And so even now she'll call me like, someone walked up to me on the beach and they're singing that song. I'm like, it's trademarked. You're making money. I guarantee you. They filmed a TikTok and you're making money off of it. She's like, okay. I'm like, that's for the tigers.
Oh my god.
The money is for the tigers. I mean, at the end of the day,
yeah. Have you been to her like tiger?
I haven't. I need to.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a while since I've actually talked to her, but she was my first PR client. And
Wow.
man, it was a long road.
Were you allowed to share that, like, you were her publicist, or was it more of like a confidentiality
Yeah,
thing?
no, she was
Wow.
all for it, because I mean, she didn't really get to see the edits and stuff before
Mhm.
the show came out.
So she had no idea.
She had no idea.
But she was smart to have a publicist before,
Mhm.
just in case. Like, at least
Mhm.
she was prepared and
Yeah, well, she initially hired me for the Tigers, basically. So, and then when this came out, I was like, okay, we need to
damage control.
damage control 100%.
Wow.
So
So if you could change the narrative about her as your client, like, what would it be?
but she's one of the sweetest people,
Mhm.
and people can just disappear. Unfortunately, in the United States, people disappear all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, even right now, we have a woman that just disappeared from Hawaii
Yeah.
on purpose.
I know.
So, I think don't judge a person based off of TV or social media at the end of the day.
100%. Yes.
Yep.
So now I want to talk about you. I want to start with pageants because Misrepresented is mostly about pageants
Yes.
and entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So what brought you into the pageant world?
It was also during COVID. It was like all COVID was just like changed my life. But
Wow.
I'd had 5 children by then. I had just had my 6th child, and it was a stillbirth, and I was just like not feeling good about myself.
Mhm.
And I wanted to get some advocacy out there, but mainly I joined pageantry because as a mom, it's so hard not to feel guilty about getting your hair done or getting your nails done. That mom guilt is so strong. So I was like, okay, if I join this pageant, maybe I'll have a little bit more confidence in myself,
Mhm.
and it's an excuse to get my hair done more.
What was your first pageant that you signed up for?
Mrs. Texas America.
How did that go?
um
Well, first of all, it's a Mrs. pageant and it's in Texas, so it was probably a bloodbath.
so everybody was so sweet. Okay, I do want
Mhm.
to clarify, like the pageant world, I was expecting like kind of toddlers and tiaras, but it wasn't like that.
Mhm.
I mean, the big hair and the makeup, obviously, but the women were so incredible. They all have a story to share, and they're so empowering. And I'm still friends with most of the women that I competed with. But I will say I was not prepared. They send out this email for our workshop, and they're like, come in casual work attire with your hair and makeup. And I'm like, okay. So I showed up in a sundress, a sunflower sundress, and my hair was straightened. And I was like, okay. And I kind of glammed up, no
Mhm.
earrings, like studs.
Like actually casual,
Like,
but a little more glam.
yeah, I kind of spiced it up with some jewelry, but like with studs and pearls, and was like, okay, this is like classy. Okay. I walk in. And I'm like, oh my goodness. This is not what I thought business business casual
Right.
was. I mean, they are done up. They have the shoes, the pageant shoes. Their hair is like this. And they're like beautiful. And I literally just sat down and it was quiet the whole time.
Oh my
And I hid in the
gosh.
corner. And I was like, okay. So one of the girls pulls me aside, Jennifer Daly, and she's like, hey, let's like just go in the bathroom and spice you up a little. And I was like,
Oh
oh,
my
okay. And she really helped me, and we ended up having lunch, and to this day I talked to her. I talked to her yesterday.
Wow.
And she's come down to my Rise Up conferences, and so pageantry has really made those friendships just amazing. And so the director was like, hey, just maybe like something here, like she has a store, so she had me go in there, and I had just had a baby, so like nothing fit me, and I was like crying because we were picking out our swimsuits, and I'm like, the swimsuit doesn't fit, and like, and I'm looking around the room, and I felt so discouraged. I was like, I'm not coming back, I'm not going to compete. But almost every single woman after that, they noticed me,
Mhm.
and they reached out to me, and they made sure that I
Wow.
knew what I was doing.
Wow.
And I would drive up to Dallas because I was in Houston, and I drive up and I've had lunch with them, and one of the pageant coaches like reached out and was like, hey, I just want to offer you some like a free Zoom, and let's just give you some tips. And I was like, okay. So when I arrived the first day of Mrs. Texas, the pageant director walks up, she goes, I just want to tell you, you have blossomed. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. Like, I
Mhm.
had the hair, I got the
Yeah.
extensions, I did it all out, and I really worked on my platform. And I didn't win, but I won in a sense that I made some amazing friendships, and that was like the start. I mean, I will say, Texas is cutthroat when it comes
It's
to
not for the
pageant.
weak. Yeah.
No, I mean, you can see like women one woman looked at me, and she's like, I just want you to know I love you, but at the pageant, like, I'm gonna be focused. And I
Oh
was
my
like, oh, okay,
gosh.
that's fine. Then she was working on her walk. She didn't really pay
Wow.
attention to anybody, but everybody was kind of like that. But Jennifer, she like pulled me aside. She's like, walk like this, like kind of fix this and
Oh,
like
that's
this. And
amazing.
so it was a blast. And so from there I did her pageant again the next year, and then I did Earth, and then I took a break. I was like, okay, I just need a break. And so I started representing the pageant women
Mhm.
and learning like pageant women, they win their titles, but then they don't know what to do. They like
Yeah.
work so hard.
Mhm.
And I feel like they think that once they won, the opportunities will just
Right, like you're an
come to them.
overnight celebrity and that's not the case
No, I'm
anymore.
like, you have
Mhm.
to work. I want to see you work. So the last 3 years, or 2 years, whatever, I've focused on helping pageant women come up with their story, make their media kit. No one knows what a media kit is. I'm like, make that media kit. Let's and I teach them how to do that. I teach them how to reach out to brands, get PR packages, not even like sponsorships, just PR, so you feel like a celebrity.
Yeah.
And so that's been my focus, and I help them monetize their platforms. There's so many ways you can make money through social media and your platform, and just getting on those PR lists and the red carpet walks and just grand openings. You want to be a celebrity.
Even
You
like working with you to get you and Celie on this podcast, like I can tell that you hustle for your
I do,
clients
yeah.
and you know how everything works and you really have it all figured out. So
I try to.
I
And
know
if I
you're
don't have it figured out, I will figure it out.
I love that. So do you have a success story that comes to mind from one of your clients where she was just perfect and blossomed so much under your care?
Oh man, there's so many. I've represented, you know, a lot of the women, but I will say Christy Wishnak and Jennifer Lloyd have been amazing. I
Oh, I
helped
love
them.
Jennifer. Oh
Yeah,
my
I helped
gosh.
her when she was working she was competing as Mrs. Korea. I kind of helped her with her
Oh, really?
PR.
Because that was the most iconic queen. I always bring her up because I'm like, she came in with her own team. She was
Mhm.
posting every single day.
Oh,
And
she has
if,
a social media like
mm-hmm,
she goes all out,
yep,
and she's just amazing. She knows, she hustles.
yeah.
She hustles. So does Christy, and she's the current elite Mrs. Queen of the World.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's kind of why I went with the Queen of the World, is because
Mm-hmm.
those women, they hustle, they know what luxury is, they know how to work their platforms. And I feel like Alice, the director, kind of helps guide them. And you don't really get that with a lot of the other pageant systems. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, now you won, now go promote.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know how to promote. So Jennifer has like her whole media kit. I helped Christy build her media kit. We've gotten them on Vince Magazine and Blackbird News, TV, PR packages. And I think both of those queens have just really rocked it. So I
Wow.
was like, you know what? It's my turn.
I
I'm
love
going to
that.
compete. So I called Alice. I was like, I'm doing it. She's like, finally.
So why Queen of the World specifically, other than the amazing title?
So I love the title,
Mm-hmm.
like just Mrs. Queen of the World. I'm like,
Right.
okay. But again, I would say it's like following her current queens. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like they knew, like her last year queens, Karina, they knew what to do. Even her USA Rebecca, they have these amazing platforms, and Alice really, she knows how to throw on a pageant, and she knows how to work with the brands, and she knows how to get you out there, and she doesn't just like throw you to the wolves. Like, okay, you figure it out.
Wow.
And so, and I feel like they have that team. They have
Mm-hmm.
that amazing team that helps you. And like they just went to Sri Lanka and did this huge media tour.
What? Oh my
And they
gosh.
had designer dresses and makeup and nails and like the full out. It is luxury. And if I'm gonna spend money on a pageant, because we know
Mm-hmm. They're not cheap.
pageants are not cheap. It is the most expensive hobby a woman could probably go for.
Yeah.
But it's a business write-off.
Yeah.
Wink.
Especially if you
Yeah.
work with Rose.
Yeah, right? It's definitely a business write-off if you work it right. And I feel like the Queen of the World works it right. They know how to promote their queens.
I want to know what your plan is after you win Queen of the World.
So in January, I'm gonna compete for USA. I think my plan is gonna keep doing what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna like change everything. And I feel like a lot of queens are like, oh well, when I win, I'm gonna do this.
Wow.
And I'm like, no, you're gonna keep doing it whether you win or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel like pageants queens kind of mess up. But I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to work my platform. It's so dear to my heart. And then help other queens with their PR, do my own PR. And then my daughters want to compete. So
Oh
I just
my
want to show them
gosh.
like pageant world is really...
You're going to be so busy.
I know, 5 girls in the pageant world. I'm like,
oh, we forgot in the bio. She's a mother of 6.
Mother of 6. 6. Yeah,
and you're
one
still
boy.
under 30.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah. One more year. One more year.
Wow.
But
okay.
Yeah.
So,
but my platform is like really dear. So I'm not going to change who I am for the crown. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. And I have a bunch of galas. I have New York Fashion Week. My daughters are walking in New York Fashion Week this year.
So
They're
exciting.
so excited.
Are you going to walk?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I'm going to walk for Christy at Glamour Girl. And,
oh, wow.
And Jonathan Kane. I love Jonathan Kane.
So you're going to be busy.
I'm going to be busy. Yeah. So I have like my whole year planned out. I have a media tour, and if I win, I win. If I don't, I'm just going to keep going with my media tour and just work my book and work everything.
So I have to ask this, and I've never asked on my podcast before, but it's a common onstage question.
Okay.
And I feel like you're the perfect person to ask because this system is so established already, but you're also very established yourself. So do you need the crown, or does the crown need you?
I think the crown needs me. Well, I
And
don't
why?
know. I don't know. That's a tricky question because the crown is so established, but I feel like with my PR background and working with brands and stuff, I can bring to the crown, but I feel like the crown can bring to me too.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure how to answer that question.
I feel like it's going to be so mutually beneficial.
Very mutually beneficial. Yeah.
So now I want to talk about your advocacy.
So Rise Up Womenpreneurs is my conference. So I started it off as a conference, and we toured twice this year, one in Houston, one in Nashville. Basically women that are wanting to start sharing their stories, but they don't want to hire a publicist, and they just don't know what the next steps are, or if they even want to speak to a crowd. So we had 12 amazing speakers this year. They all had their stories to tell. And at the end of the day, a woman has a story to tell. A man has a story to tell. But it's just how they present that story and how they've used their story to move forward with their life, how they're being powerful to the world. And so that's why I started Rise Up. Like, let's share your story. Let's get women in a crowd. Let's see how you can help them change or even motivate them or anything. But your story may resonate with someone. You never know what they went through. Like, I stood up this year and I was like, I haven't been very open with what's happened to me. Everybody knows I was in foster care, and everybody knows I was trafficked, and they know I wrote a book about it, but they didn't really know the details. So I stood up this year and I was like, I'm going to start sharing my story in more depth. So I stood up and I shared, and I looked down while I shared, and then I looked up and everybody's crying. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, I'm not going to share anymore. And they were like, no, you have to share. You have to finish.
So this was at last year's conference?
Yeah, this was in October. So a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow. It
just happened. And this was in Nashville. And so it was like, okay, I'm so sorry for making you all cry. And they're like, no, you have one woman pull me aside. I never want to share my story because I feel like people are going to judge me. And like, yeah, people will judge you. At the end of the day, people are going to judge you. And that was something I had a hard time with. Like, yeah, I was abused. You know, I was trafficked. I was a foster child. Literally, people told me I was trash. Like, I was unwanted. And I would carry myself in from house to house in a trash bag, a literal like trash bag, and it had holes in it, and I'd have to beg for a new trash bag, you know? And so it's like, okay. And she's like, well, I was in foster care, and I don't tell anybody. I'm like, why?
Wow.
So I feel like we need to be more proud of where we come from, and I would never change. I get asked all the time, what would you change about your past? I wouldn't change anything.
Wow.
I wouldn't change what I went through because I'm helping other people get through what they went through. Unfortunately, it was a horrible event, multiple events, but it made me who I am today. It made me the mother I am today.
In your book, you told me when I was doing your makeup that people didn't feel like you shared enough. So what are some things that you haven't shared in your book that you think is important to share now?
So recently I got my CPS paperwork, and it was kind of hard for me because I always thought like, well, the guys that did this to me, the people that did this to me, they went to jail.
Wow.
They did not. They did not. In the 90s, they did classes for offenders. And I was like, wait a second. I was 2 years old. And I'm like reading this, and I gave it to my husband. And I'm like, am I reading this right? Did they send him to sex offender classes? And then he's like, yeah, they did. And I'm like, okay. I was 2 years old, and I was telling CPS all these things that with dolls and showing them what happened to me, and they sent them to classes.
Wow.
And I feel like also my mother was so young when she had me. She was 15 years old, and because she had an opioid addiction, they didn't take her seriously. She brought me 3 times to the hospital for what she thought was molestation.
Wow.
And they didn't believe her. And she'd get frustrated, and she'd leave, and she didn't know what to do, so she'd leave me with someone. And so finally she was trying to work. She was trying to turn her life around. She didn't have the childcare, so she left me in a bathroom. And
How old were you?
I was 3. And a neighbor heard me crying, I guess, through the walls for a long period. And so they came in and they got me. And I think she might have left me for a couple of days, because they said I had a bowl of ramen and a bowl of water, and mice were eating the ramen.
Oh my
And I was
God.
like, okay. And I kind of like, you have these flashbacks,
Wow.
you know, but I never really, like, I knew my situation. I knew that they found me in a bathroom, and I knew it had ramen, but it was like the mice. I was reading about the mice, and I was like, oh
my
that's
God.
horrible. And I'll joke, I like to turn my stuff. I'm like, this is why I like ramen so much. My job.
I love ramen too.
I know. And I'm like, man, I really love ramen. And but like, I literally just got my paperwork a couple months ago, and so I've been trying. I've only made it like halfway through the first box. There's 5 boxes, and I'm like, I'm having such a hard time just getting through it.
Wow.
But I think we always feel better when people have been brought to justice. And now I'm like feeling like they weren't actually brought to justice.
Do you have any clue where they are now at all?
Mm-hmm.
You do.
Yeah. So one of them was my grandmother's my grandmother's husband. So my step grandfather. So my birth mom had gone through a lot of trauma, and it says that I'm like 5th generation of incest rape.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, okay. So my mother had been abused, and her mother didn't believe her, and my grandmother's mom had been abused, and her mother didn't believe her, and she ended up
so it's generational.
Yeah. And so my mom's dad went to jail for a long time, and then she got married to another guy, and he had a relationship with both of her daughters, and they were minors. Like, I hear a lot of the time, well, I was a minor. It was consensual. I don't care if you were a minor.
Yeah.
And you said, yeah, sure, you were 9 years old.
Yeah.
11 years old, 15 years old. It's not consensual at the end of the day. And so she just was like, okay, well, I love him. So then my mom just struggled so bad with addiction. By the time she was 15, she had me, and he started abusing me at 6 months on.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, but he so when I was taken, he fought for me, which is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
So weird. And they ended up like, he had to take his offender classes.
Wow.
And so when I came out with my book, because I changed my name when I was adopted, I changed my name, but I figured that if my book went viral or something, he might be able to figure it out, and he figured it out pretty quickly.
What was his reaction?
He sent me an email, and it was like, you may not remember me, but I didn't do this to you. And I was like, well, no, you did. Because I remember, like, if you read my book, there's a page, like, I remember what was on the wall. He had these clown masks, like theater masks.
Oh my gosh.
On the walls, and he had a pet snake, and I remember. And I remember his silhouette, and I remember his name. And so I was like, no, you did. I was young, but you did.
Wow.
And he was like, well, I have this oh, I got this creepy email. He's like, I made this video of you when you were a kid, and it's still on YouTube, and it has my nickname and my birth name on it, and it's like, I'm looking for her. And I'm like,
Oh my
she would be
gosh.
18 now. And I'm like, ew, okay, great.
Wow.
And so when my mom lost her rights, she ended up, she couldn't handle it. She spiraled, and she cut her family out, and she fought for me for 3 years. And finally, when she got arrested for a DWI, they told her, you can relinquish your rights, or you can start paying child support and paying us back for the care. And so she ended up relinquishing her rights, and she died a year later.
Wow.
But he'll email me every year on my birthday. Happy birthday! I have this album of you if you want it. And I'm like, nope, I don't want childhood photos that bad, because I don't have any.
Wow.
I'm like, I am good.
Yeah.
I have 3 photos in my CPS paperwork that I just got, and I was so happy to get
Really?
those.
How did you feel when you saw them?
My kids are like, who is that? And I was like, it's me. And they're like, no, it's me, but I don't remember that. I'm like, my daughters look so much like me.
Oh my gosh.
So that, it was actually heartwarming to see them, but it's also like kind of like sad to see like that I was such a little girl going through so much, and I to know where I am today maybe would have helped me a little more through.
It's insane, like the turnaround in your life, because now you're so successful. I think your celebrity status, you're representing celebrities, you're on TV, like your life is so abundant, and like I feel like it's very perfect right now from the outside looking in. So how did you get to that point?
Well, so I had a lot of people tell me while I was in foster care, like I had some abuse happen while in foster care, the trafficking and stuff, and my caseworker told me, she's just like, no one wants you right now. We can't put this in your record. If we put it in your record, you're still not going to be wanted. So at this point, I was 7 years old. She's like, I don't think you're going to be adopted. And if we put this in your record, you're not going to amount to anything. And so going to the group homes while my foster families went on vacation, because I wasn't allowed to go with them.
What?
And so I would hear constantly from the adults and other foster children, like teenagers, like, we're not going to amount to anything. We're just going to be one. At that time, it's not really acceptable now, but statistics showed then that if you were abused, you were going to be gay. And so at that time, it was like, oh, you don't want to do that. It wasn't acceptable. And then now, or you're gonna be a drug addict, or you're just gonna die really young. And so I had that ingrained in me constantly, or you're just gonna be like your birth mom, a drug addict and a prostitute and all this. I was like, so well, I was adopted. I did not want to be adopted. I told him, I said, I don't want to be adopted. And the judge said, we're not going to finalize her adoption until she wants to be adopted. And I'm like, you should have never done that, because it delayed it for so long.
Oh my gosh.
But I finally was like, fine, you're just going to give me back in like 6 months anyways. So whatever. They didn't give me back. And I will say, like, throughout the 6 years I was with them, I was like, you're just going to give me back the whole time. The whole time. And so now I'll talk to her and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Wow.
But she was the one who was like, you're not going to, they were very, very conservative, and I hated them for that. But now I personally probably wouldn't be that conservative myself, but I feel like it did save me. You always try to grasp onto something, and I grasped onto Christianity, and I grasped onto the high level, like Mennonite Christianity. Like they were like, you're not going to be a lesbian, and you're not going to be promiscuous.
And, like, backfire.
I know, right? Like, I mean, I got married very young, and they were like not happy about that.
Yeah. And
I started having children, but I was dedicated. I was like, I am not going to be like my mom. I'm just not. And I felt, I get asked all the time, like, hey, are you angry at her? And I'm like, no, I'm not. She was 15 years old. Yeah. She was a child when she had me, and she died at 20. Like, I feel like she didn't have that family. I mean, she was put into foster care and then given back to her family, and she just didn't have that support system. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you don't have that support system, you won't be where you are. And so I eventually got that support system, and I had that dedication, and my husband, he really pushes me as well. And so I was like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom and all this stuff. And so I had my degree by the time I was 18, and
Wow.
I got married at 18. I had my first child at 19, and I looked at my husband and I was like, we've been eating lentil soup for a week, and I can't, one, the smell, and then two, I don't want to eat lentil soup.
Oh my
And
gosh.
but I was so stubborn. I didn't want to be on government assistance
Mhm.
because I felt like that was a back step.
Yeah.
That if I got on government assistance, I was going to be my mom. And again, I wasn't mad at her.
Yeah.
I wanted to be better, and so I refused to be on assistance. Eventually, someone looked at me and it was a caseworker, and she's like, hey, it's okay if you're on assistance. Use it as a stepping stone. So it's like, okay, I guess, because we were struggling. He had just gotten his master's degree. He was working at the prison. We had 3 kids at that now.
Wow.
By the time I was 20, and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. It's not working. I can't just live paycheck to paycheck. And he was at that mindset, like, I don't want a wife that works. I want to watch the kids. And so I was like racking my brain. So I became a doula. But my degree was in marketing. And so I started helping other birth workers kind of like navigate social media.
Wow.
And then I did doula work, and that was very fulfilling, I will say. There's something about helping bring children in the world. Maybe it's
so magical.
Yeah. And so, but then COVID hit, and it's like, okay, I can't. I became very successful. I was the number one doula company in Texas, and
Wow.
I did celebrity clients. I was getting flown out to Canada and New York and all this, like, and so I rose. I mean, people just, I guess, drawed to me. I don't know. But and then I went on to HGTV, and we gave nurseries to moms in need, postpartum care for a year, and diapers, and
How did that opportunity come about?
I just I went to a networking group. I'm telling you, you have to go to networking groups.
Wow.
I went to a networking group, and there was a producer there, and I was like, hey, like, I have this idea. And he's like, I love this. I was like, okay. And he's like, let's do it.
What?
And I was like, really? And then COVID hit, and he
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, well, we have to kind of, the COVID rules and stuff, but we continued to film.
Wow.
It was 3 of us, me, the other host, and then the producer. And because of COVID, we edited the videos. We did everything. We sent it to them. Brands loved it.
Wow.
We've renewed for a second season. I just haven't had the time to film. I need to do it.
And you just had another baby.
I just had another baby, my last baby, I promise.
And of course, during COVID, Carol Baskin happened, and she got you busier than you thought.
Yeah, and then I sold another show to Netflix.
Wow. What show?
So I have an NDA on that one.
Okay.
Can't say, but it was a networking event on Clubhouse. I was like, hey, I have this idea, and the Netflix CEO was on. Like, people were crunching during COVID, and I told him, and he's like, love it, here's the money. And I'm like, cool.
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome. And so and it became really successful. And so now everybody's like, so when's your next one? So I just sold my movie rights for my book.
Okay.
So I'm writing the part 2 now. It's due by the end of February. We'll see. But hopefully, I really want to, for this movie, I want it to portray what a real foster care child looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to see us carrying our garbage bags and going home to home and seeing like what we went through. And that's kind of how I started dying inside. I really was dying inside. And I would try to talk to people, and it was just like, ugh, well, you're kind of lower class. Okay. And so I really, during COVID changed my life. I had Carol Baskin. I wrote my book. I started pageantry, and it just kind of blossomed from there. Now I have 2 million in reach with the social media, and brands are flying me everywhere, and I represent all these amazing women, and it's just kind of just fallen into place, and
wow,
it's been amazing. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything from my past.
Wow.
I would rather it happen to me than someone else at the end of the day.
Rose.
I mean, I reading it, my husband is like, I look at you and you would never know.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this is horrible. Like, he won't even finish reading it. And we're not even halfway through. We're not even a quarter through the paperwork. And I'm like, you know what? I'm only reading it so I can write my second part of my book better. Because I want people to understand. And I want them to treat foster children. And I feel like with the whole industry coming to play where trafficking is concerned and abuse is concerned, it is coming out. But I want people to feel empowered, and I want them to be able to tell their story and not be ashamed. And that's just kind of like where I'm at right now. Like, tell me your story. Let's figure out how to share it. Let's figure out how you're going to change the world. And I really mean change the world.
So as a victim, what helped you overcome your trauma in the past?
Talking about it more. I was so ashamed. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't do well in public school and private school because everybody knew. Because I went in as Tarina Marie Channel to Rose Janice.
I love that name. Wasn't it Rosalie or something?
Yeah, Rosalie's.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, they were like, what do you want to be? And I was like, skunk. And they were like, no. Because I went through this weird phase where I didn't want anybody to touch me.
Yeah.
Which, not weird given the circumstances. So I was like, I'm skunk.
Oh my gosh.
And then I was like, well, now I want to be star. And they're like, can we pick something else? So I was like, Rose? And they're like, yes.
So pretty.
I don't even know how I came up with the lease. I think we were just like going through top name sites and that came to be. And but I love picking names. My daughters have beautiful names. So I'm like, my son is John. Oh. He's the first boy, and he's like, you could have come up with something more. I'm like, well, you're like John the Seventh. My husband is Scottish, so it's like, that's a tradition. I had to name you John.
That's cute.
Yeah.
What's his middle name?
Conrad.
Okay.
My adopted dad's name.
It's very demure.
So. Right? And then my daughters are Athena Rose, Genevieve Elise.
And Genevieve is so pretty.
Yeah, she goes by Evie.
Oh my god.
And then we have Arabella Grace, Persephone May, and Anastasia Marie.
I might steal some of these names. And
I know.
Like nice, like old money names.
It was like elegance.
Yeah.
And my kids are very proud of their names.
Oh my gosh. So with your background, how has navigating parenting been?
So I was really afraid when I had my first kid, I was going to have a hard time connecting with my child. And so I kind of became an overbearing parent. I was like, no one is allowed to touch my baby because I really wanted to bond. And then you have the stress of motherhood. Like, you have to breastfeed or you're a bad mother and like all this stuff. Like, so much is out there. And so I struggled really hard with breastfeeding him. But I did. And then I ended up pregnant again and again and again. But I love being a mom. I knew I wanted to be a mom. I knew I wanted to have a large family. And I wanted to be a mom to my children. And then I wanted to adopt and foster. Wow. And I wanted to wait until my kids were a certain age so they understood, because I want to adopt older children. And so...
Is that still part of the plan?
Wow. Yeah. So we're going to wait until my youngest is about 4 years old and then go from there. But we currently, with the nonprofit, we help with rehabilitation of aging out. Because they'll age out and they're like, now what?
Wow.
They've been talked down to their whole life. Like, they usually do become drug addicts or whatever else.
How did you find the confidence to start your own business and put yourself out there?
My husband, he really encouraged me. He's like, well, if this is something you really want to do. But I was trying to like rack up my mind because we had 5 kids.
Wow.
Or 3 kids at that time. And I was like, I can't afford childcare. And so it's like, so if I'm a doula, we kind of rotated shifts. And he was like, okay, whatever you want to do, let's do it. Let's figure it out. And so we did. And there were so many times I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I'm a mom. I'm an entrepreneur. And then my husband decided he didn't want to work at the prison anymore in the psych ward. He wanted to open his own private practice. And so then that marketing degree really came into play. And so it was my husband. Definitely my husband. He was like, you have to do it.
And so you graduated at 18 with a marketing degree. How did
Mhm.
you know you wanted to go into marketing? Was it just like an option and you were like, that's cute? Like that
Yeah,
one?
right? No, so kind of like that, but I was going through a website, like, who makes the most?
Love that for you though.
Like, who makes the most and can possibly work at home? Because that was,
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be a mom.
Mhm.
So it was like, if I can work from home and take care of my children and homeschool them, then perfect. And so,
Are they homeschooled?
mhm,
Wow, I love that. And
yeah.
you're also like dabbling with like homesteading.
Yeah,
I
we have
love it.
an exotic farm, and we do the sourdough. My kids love cooking from scratch, which is
Um,
fun.
Messy.
It's not even messy because I love, like, they have so much fun with it, but it's just time consuming.
Mhm.
And so it's like the ballerina farms. I don't know how well, I know how she survives. She survives because she's built this brand. She
Yeah.
is a brand.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tell everybody. But I enjoy it, but I am tired a lot.
That's what I wanted to hear because I'm like, so far you're still making it sound too easy. Even though you're talking about your challenges, I feel like you're still like, oh, and then I did this and I did that.
I
But
feel like if I had started later, I wouldn't.
you wouldn't.
No, because I'm 29, and I think my sleep schedule is so off.
Yeah.
So off. Like, I have a newborn. Well, she's 1, but I still breastfeed, and then I have the other kids, and I have a very strict schedule. So, like, in the morning I homeschool for this like amount of time, and then they go online and do some like extracurricular stuff. And then on Fridays they go to an enrichment program, so they learn how to bake and Spanish and science club, and so that's what they do on Fridays, and that's when I really do a lot of my work. And then I do a lot of like late night calls, or I'll like, okay, go jump on the trampoline for 30 minutes. I have to take this call.
I don't know how you do it. And you're so on top of it. It's like if I send an email, I have a response in like 30 minutes. Like I know you're going to get back to me that day. So I can't even do that and I have no kids.
Well, I have
I'm
a
very
team.
impressed.
I do have a team. I have 2 assistants, and they stay on top of my social media and stuff. And so, like, usually if it's a really fast response, it's because they know how to answer for me. But if it's like 30 minutes to an hour later, it's usually, and it's like super quick, it's me. But
oh my gosh. So, do you have any advice for women?
I would say that no matter what age that you start, whether it's a teenager by getting pregnant as a teen, or getting pregnant later in life, or not even having children, that at the end of the day, as long as you have a good support team, and you even if you're not confident in yourself, just try. At the end of the day, it's like, what do you have to lose? And I always tell pageant women, like, if you're trying to get sponsors, walk into that Mexican restaurant, tell them what you're doing, tell them your platform, and you might walk out with a check, or you might even walk out with a hug. And I just give it a try, no matter what. Like, just say yes.
I have a follow-up question on that. Did you ever feel ready to start your business?
No, I'm like an over planner. Like, this could go wrong, and this could go wrong. What if we bankrupt the family and we're on the streets?
Oh my
like
gosh.
I was so scared. Like, we're already poor, like not poor, but struggling. What if I put us in even more hardship? And my husband was just like, no, just, if we put us up in more hardship, I'll get a second job. Like, and I'm like, okay.
I love your husband.
Yeah. And so he really did. But at the end of the day, no matter if you have the confidence or not, just do it. What's the worst that can happen?
That's the best advice, really.
So,
you're never going to feel ready.
no, never.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
All right. So we're going to go into our this or that portion of the show before we wrap it up. So some of them are like pageant questions. Some are social media. The first one is going to be crown or sash.
Sash.
Yes.
I like the sash. Like, for the USA contestants, we don't get a crown, but I feel like the crown might take away from the title a little. People always want to take a photo with the crown. But now I've had people who will walk up and like, tell me about this.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was at the restaurant. I got in at 11 o'clock last night, and I had it on my back, on my new jacket, and she stopped me. She's like, what is this? And I'm like, so I told her, she's like, I'm going to go follow. This is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, definitely the sash over the crown.
Love that. So speaking of dinner, steak or sushi?
Steak. Yep.
Road trip or fly?
Road trip.
Yeah, really? I
Yeah.
love that. You're so wholesome.
No, road trip. I'm not a big fan of flying, but my
Mhm.
family, when they were homeschooling me, whatever we learned that year, we'd pack up
You were homeschooled too?
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
So they'd pack up and we'd go and visit. So I've visited like 40 states.
We have so much in common. I was homeschooled and my parents loved road tripping. And I'm like,
Mhm.
until you've truly road tripped, you don't know what you're missing. Because
Yeah.
you think it's lame and you want to fly because it's faster, but road
Yeah.
tripping changed my life.
Yeah, my husband was, when we first got to this, I'm never road tripping. I'm like, yes, you are.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And
I
now
would
he's
kill
like,
for a road
so we
trip
could
right
just
now.
drive this and it will be there in this the day. Along the way, we could stop here, here, and here. I'm like,
Did you have like a camper?
yeah.
Love that.
Mhm,
Same.
we have a camper, yeah.
A photo shoot or fashion show?
Oh, that's a hard one. Fashion show. Because I can interact with people more.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the network. Yeah.
Yes. So you're kind of in the middle. So I don't know if you can answer this question, but I know you've probably been to both coasts, or East Coast or West Coast.
East Coast.
Really?
Yeah, I like the East Coast more. I like the snow and the lobster.
But not sushi.
Not sushi. Yeah, I'm definitely East Coast.
Platform heels or sandal heels?
Platform heels. I'm short. I gotta
Same.
compensate.
Me too. I'm like, they don't make them tall enough.
No, they don't.
Hair or makeup?
Hair.
Yeah.
Hair.
Shopping online or in person?
Online.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're busy. You don't have time to
I
go
don't
to
have
a
time
store.
for that. And I can
How was
return
your Cyber
it.
Monday?
Hmm?
How was your Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
Well, I spent so much money.
Me too.
But it's the best time to do it, especially with 6 kids.
That's my excuse. I'm like, you know what? Christmas presents. Like, just, if we're going to get it, get it now.
Yeah, I think I got extensions for myself and ended up returning them. But for my kids, I'm done. I'm not doing any more shopping. It's all in the top of my closet, hidden in like vegetable boxes, like Costco boxes, so they have no idea.
Do they believe in Santa?
No.
Yeah.
No, my husband really wanted them to like believe in Santa, but I didn't. And I felt kind of like that was lying to them. And then at the end of the day, I was trying to explain to him, like, I was in foster care. My family, like, foster kids, we got Christmases, but if they had tags on them, the families would take them back for the money. So I usually would get a present, they'd like snap a photo, and then it would go back. I think there's one year I got a Barbie scooter and I got to keep it. I was so excited.
Oh my gosh.
So I felt like all these other kids had Santa. I'm like, why didn't Santa bring me stuff? And so I didn't want my kids to, like, because some years maybe we couldn't afford Christmas.
Yeah.
So we try to do those little things. So my kids don't believe in Santa. They do like to go take photos with Santa, though. They love taking photos with Santa.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
That's so crazy because I also, like, my parents told us from the beginning Santa's not real. And so I was kind of like that asshole kid that was like, Santa's not real. Like, what do you mean?
I know. My daughter asked me actually yesterday morning, is Santa really real, or are you just telling us he's not? Because you don't.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, why do you ask?
That's a crazy thought.
Why do you ask that? And she's like, well, because kids are talking about it at the programs. And I'm like, oh, well, some people believe in Santa, but I mean, we're kind of Santa's helpers, I guess. We're Santa. Every parent's Santa.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't want my kids to be like, well, why did they get something and we didn't? And I'm very honest with my children.
I have like no remorse towards my parents about not having a Santa, and I feel like it might have been better because I knew from the beginning he wasn't real. Imagine being a child believing this whole magical Santa story and then finding out one day that he's not real. Like, I feel like that's pretty traumatic.
Yeah, it really is. And especially like where foster kids or less fortunate children are concerned, they just don't understand.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, last question. Reels or TikTok?
Reels.
Really?
I gotta get into the TikTok space. Like, I have the
you're
following.
A TikTok queen.
Really? Yeah, I have a big following, but I don't like over editing stuff. And I think I got my following because I'm so honest. I'm like, I don't edit. I don't like the editing, and I feel like with TikTok that you have to edit a little bit more.
There's so much, with the filters.
Yeah,
and it's like mostly a shopping app now. I feel like it's like
it's turned into
Amazon
shopping
and Temu and like one app.
So I'm not a big TikTok fan. Instagram though, I love Instagram.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love Instagram. I'm not a Facebook person. That's
kind of
yeah.
I mean, I snuck and got a Facebook when it like was popular. I pretended I was a college student to have one, but yeah, now I'm like, oh no,
no. Instagram is like my app for sure.
Instagram's my app for sure. Yeah.
So where can our audience follow you, and when is your pageant?
So everybody can follow me at Corralling the Campbells. So I literally corral my children.
I love that name.
Yeah. So Rose Campbell or Corralling the Campbells. You'll find me on all platforms. And then just shoot me a message. If I'm always open to talking to anybody. As far as this pageant is concerned, if you go to Queen of the World USA's Instagram, they're going to live stream it on January 11th.
Oh, can't wait. I'm going to set my alarm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.